Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rowan Pettis, Executive Director here at the Australian Chamber of Commerce in South Korea. Today is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to AustCham Korea's inaugural Financial Services Subcommittee event for 2021. Post-COVID changes to the Korean Fintech sector with three very special guests from Fiserv, TOS and Shinsegae. To provide some remarks, and may I introduce Yong and Cho. Yong and Cho has been a strong contributor to the Chamber as a board member and mentor for the last 7 years. He's a fintech expert specializing in the payment industry, a deep knowledge in the financial technology sector, and is currently the head of e-commerce at the world's largest payment service provider, Fiserv. Yongin, may I introduce yourself and we can proceed with the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Rowan. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, attendees, and the members of the Australian Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to first thank the AustCham team for organising the event. And I think it's a very good event because, over the last year or so, we've been very heavily impacted on the COVID pandemic. And payments is a very, it's an industry that is, very in relations to the livelihood of, our daily lives. And so today we have two great guests, our speakers from Shinsegae INC and TOS, to talk about, how these companies are helping the consumers to be able to adopt these changes through pandemics or other, situations and such. So I'd like to bring on our first speaker, Sally Lee, who's actually been working with a number of fintech or tech-savvy companies in both Hong Kong and South Korea. And her key focus has been helping global clients and local companies to be able to set up their business in the Asia region. And she's now part of the TOS Global Payments team, managing, and supporting multiple national brands and teaching them how to understand the Korea payment landscape, and also helping Korean consumers, both online and through mobile commerce, through their TOS payment wallet services. So over to you, Sally.
Thank you so much for your intro, Yongin. And hi, everyone. As Yongin mentioned, I'm currently working in TOS Payments, helping global merchants navigating Korea's payment scene. So I'll probably give you a brief intro about what TOS is doing and then the overall payment scene in Korea as well. Would you please help me to put up the presentation? Thank you. Right, so if you go on to the next slide, I'll give you a little bit of intro what I'm going to be talking about. Firstly, I will provide a little bit of overview of how payment scene is working in Korea, which is supposed to be quite specific. And then I'll try to introduce a little bit more about TOS itself. And last but not least, I will talk a little bit about my work RIMS, which is about helping global merchants understanding Korean consumers, Korean market, and adopting local payment methods as well. So if you go to the next slide, let me introduce a little bit about payment scene in Korea. The next slide, you'll be able to see that there's a breakdown of both B2C and B2B payments. And this is something that could be surprising to a lot of our global merchants, because if you go to different parts of the world, even if it's North America, which is supposed to be a more sophisticated market, it's not a common thing that everyone in the country has credit cards, everyone has access to credit card services. However, in Korea, as you can see from these two graphs, credit cards are absolutely the crucial payment methods for anyone who's trying to purchase things online, offline. And usually Korean users individually have probably more than 2 credit cards with different brandings as well. So one thing that I'm always advising global merchants is that you need to understand that everything has to be geared towards credit card payment, and then you have to make sure that your infrastructure and tech services are something suitable for credit card companies within Korea as well. For the next slide, it just shows that even in different industries, credit cards are probably the most dominant payment methods anyway. So regardless of the industry of which our global merchants are coming from, as I mentioned, we always try to make sure that credit cards are something that they basically provide. However, if you see the next slide, you will be able to see that that's not the only credit card, that's not the only payment that Korean market is focusing on. You can see that there's a huge growth in Easy Pay, which is basically a smart wallet, e-wallet solution where people have less authentication processes and then they can make payments online and offline actually with very short and simple steps. And this part is actually growing quite fast because it's geared by people who want to have much more convenient and easier payment methods. If you think about Korea back in 2010s, even before then, what consumers had to do when they're purchasing something online was that they had to download so many plugins, they had to download softwares, they had to download different types of authentication methods. So it was very hectic by then. However, now consumers are they're demanding something more easy, something more convenient when they're buying something online. Therefore, it's easy to say that the Easy Pay, the e-wallet solutions are really, really growing, and they're growing even more in the future from our projection. From the next slide, I try to give you a little bit of breakdown of how Easy Pay usage is kind of showing trends in Korea. As I mentioned before, usually these new tech-savvy trends are led by younger generation. As you can see from the graph, it's mostly people in their 20s and 30s using these services. And what really surprises me and our team as well is that the frequency of using these Easy Pay solutions are quite high. It's at least the majority of people use it at least around 2 times a week, which is a very frequent usage, especially in payment services. And the reason is probably because first, it's easy to use. Second, it's convenient. And third, once you register your payment method on your e-wallet, it's really easy for you to just make any type of transaction. And that's the reason why Easy Pay will be growing in Korean market and also in global market as well, because from us as well, we're getting more and more requests from global merchants to supply these types of e-wallet solutions. And then I will try to explain how TOS kind of fits into the picture. So before I move on to TOS payment, I would like to give a little bit of intro about TOS as well, which is our parent company. So TOS is known as the #1 fintech app in Korea, which offers more than 40 financial services within our app. We try to maintain a high usage number for MAU. And then what we're trying to do is to make sure that every single Korean individual has easy access to financial services, because when you say finance, it's usually something kind of complex and it gives you a little bit of headache. So we're trying to resolve that issue. Briefly to mention on the next slide, we are being backed up by some of the global investment. And of course, from the next, the slide after, you'll be able to see that we're being selected as some of the top fintech companies in Korea, which is quite unique for this 3 consecutive years. If you're more curious about TOS, from the next slide, you'll be able to see that we offer a lot of financial services. And like I mentioned, we're trying to detect different customers' needs in local markets to make sure we offer financial services that are relevant to our customers. And then we are kind of making things easy for them to have approach to finance. So we are trying to roll out different services as well, such as insurance, securities, and TOS Bank as well, which are kind of under our belt to launch soon. And then I'll try to introduce a little bit more about my area of work. From next slide, I kind of title it as how TOS payments from our team, how we're trying to help our global partners. Just to give you a little bit of intro, our company is already working with different global brands such as Google, Costco, Nintendo, eBay, and Gucci. And what we're trying to do is that when they're expanding to Korean market, usually payment is not something that's quite uniform to different markets. And in Korea, it's known for its complexity and regulations and how you deal with Korean consumers' minds and everything. So this is something that we want to help with for our global merchants when they're expanding out to Korean market. And we are already processing domestically over $2 billion per month. And then we're trying to kind of aim for much higher transaction volume for all our merchants in both Korea and overseas. So I want to talk a little bit about our vision, which is on the next slide, which is basically about for our end users, we want to make sure that all the payment processes are seamless, because basically if a company does its own best to do marketing and sales product, if the payment part is not working, then all that effort is going to a waste. So what we want to do is that as an end user, we want to make sure that they can have their payment experiences in a very nice, refined way. And for our business partners, what we want them to do is that they understand the Korean market, they understand the Korean payment landscape, and then make sure that all the efforts that they put in to expand to Korean market doesn't go to waste. So we can make sure that all the revenues and all the attention from end users are coming to you in a very straightforward way. So I'll introduce a little bit about how TOS Payment is having unique selling points for helping out global merchants. So I think the first thing would be vertically integrated payment gateway. This came from a pain point from a lot of global merchants when they have to find partners for different functions. For example, we had a global merchant who was trying to find a separate acquirer, a separate local payment method, a separate partner for maybe like a payout or payment settlement services. And if you have to find multiple partners for multiple functions, it actually makes everything much more complex. And when there is a voice of customer, you do not know whom to reach out to, which partner to reach out to. So what TOS Payments is trying to do with our product is that we're vertically integrated from VAN, which is a network that connects all 8 issuers, card issuers in Korea, and the payment gateway services, which offers different type of local payment methods, including direct carrier billing, credit card, EFT, virtual account. We will definitely offer that. And on top of that, like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we also offer our own e-wallet for our global merchants who are looking for more younger generation oriented, convenient payment methods. So having all these solutions into one package really helps our global clients because they don't have to look for different partners for acquiring, for FDS, for different payment methods. So we are trying to make sure that with one integration and one contract and one partnership, our global merchants can get all these services at one go. For the next one, I would say it's about making sure that we have much better payment experiences for end users. From all this kind of ugly 10 screenshots, you will be able to see that in the past, Korea actually had a very thorough, more complex kind of payment journey for a lot of online customers. However, what TOS is trying to do is that we want to streamline that process, remove the ones that we don't have to project to our customers, and then also make sure that we have a solid security foundation. So all these processes are being done under our control. So why is this good? Of course, from end users, it's good because you don't have to go through 10 steps. Now you only have to go through 4 steps when you're making a purchase from e-commerce websites. And also from the business partner's point of view, when you have less funnel to make a purchase, it means your payment success rate is going to go up. So as you can see from the graph over there, you will be able to see that with less funnel, while the traditional online companies were having around 60 to 70 payment success rate, with more refined process provided by TOS, our global merchants are experiencing around 80 to 90% success rate for payment, which means more revenue coming in from them as well for the Korean market. For the next one, I just wanted to briefly introduce about TOS Easy Pay as well, which is one of our packaging. The reason why this is being searched for a lot of global merchants is because now a lot of global merchants are aware that if they want to enter into a new market, especially something as special as like Korea, what they have to do is to really localize the payment solutions and really make sure that the local consumers, they feel the vibe that these foreign companies or global companies are carrying and understanding the localization processes for local consumers. So TOS Easy Pay is being selected by a lot of global merchants who are especially trying to target younger generation or people who are more used to regular purchases, because once you have it installed, once you have it registered, it's really easy for the consumers to make consecutive regular purchases. So this is something that we are trying to really offer and then refine for our global merchants. The next part is actually very, very important for a lot of our global merchants. As a global partner, usually you have really rare and really valuable developer resources. And it's really hard for us to get a lot of developer resources for just one market, which is Korean market. Therefore, in TOS Payments, what we try to do is to make sure that the integration processes are hassle-free. So as you can see from the comparison there, usually payment gateway services are very traditional kind of a business. That's the reason why they used to have a very long, kind of tiresome integration processes. However, when Toss Payment came into the scene, we really tried to develop a model, API integration model that was much more user-friendly and much lighter. So as you can see, we really try from our documents, it's supposed to be, the whole integration is supposed to be done within a few hours, of course, excluding examination and testing. But that's something that we try to do because we know that from global merchants' perspective, they probably don't have resources to spend the whole month or even a few months just to integrate a local payment method in Korea, since they're looking into other markets as well. So this is something that we're really trying to do. And then the next point is something that from the next slide, you'll be able to see a new model that we're trying to suggest to our global partners as well. Overseas, white labeling is a big thing because in any overseas website, you will be able to see that you just put in your card information and you get the transaction done. This is not something that's kind of common in Korea because there are a lot of steps to go through when you're doing this kind of a process. What Toss Payment is trying to do is that we try to offer this white labeling solution, which can be customized for your branding and customized for your UI as well. So with this, we are basically building an easy pay solution for your own brand. For example, let's say we're working with brand A who's selling shoes. Then what we can do is that we can customize the UI for your branding color, your branding message, your branding overall vibe as well. And then we're making an easy pay for you where customers can register their payment method and then make regular purchases or multiple purchases with very simple processes. The next slide will show you how it works. So after the first registration of your payment method, all you have to do is just put in your 6-digit password. And then from then on, you'll be able to make multiple purchases from the website that you're using it for. Last but not least, from the next slide, you'll be able to see the last unique selling point of Toss, which is using our app reach and then branding within the local market to help our global merchants do their marketing and promotion schemes. So as you can see, there are a lot of kind of ways that we can promote your brand, your global brand, through our Toss app and Toss channels. It could be, having your branding over there, giving rewards to people who make conversions in your website, or it could also be simply having a quiz, which is about your branding. And then when the customer gets it right, we give them reward. So there are a lot of ways that Toss can kind of collaborate with these global merchants. And the next case study from the next slide will be able to show you briefly about how we customize solutions for our biggest partner, Google. Basically, what they wanted was something customized to use in Play Store where customers can store their payment method. So when they're making multiple purchases, they just have to put in their password without any further authentication. So we built a tokenized solution for them, also built a UI and everything, which had a really good response from Google Play Store. And then we were really happy to work with them for a few years after this as well. So this is pretty much what I wanted to say throughout this presentation. And then from the next slide, you'll be able to see that what Toss Payments is trying to do is that we want to go something beyond payment. Instead of someone who just provides a lot of payment methods, what we're trying to do is to make sure that our global merchants are understanding the Korean market and then understanding the needs of Korean consumers as well. So thank you so much for your time. And then I'll hand it over back to Yong for the intro for the next speaker as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sally, for the knowledge and the input about how Toss Payments is making a difference to be able to simplify the very ancient Korean authentication process. I think everyone can agree that the Korean authentication process does, I guess, prevent a lot of the fraud or chargeback transactions. However, it does make it difficult, especially for foreigners living in Korea, which is like myself. And it's also great to get an understanding that even other financial services are being looked into from Toss to be able to simplify how we set up our insurance, our daily consumer banking services and such. So the next speaker that we have for everyone is Stephen Cha, who's currently the International Business Manager at Shinsegae Inc. So Shinsegae Inc. is the technology arm of the Shinsegae Group, which manages, from payments to e-commerce, to value-added network or switching services, and also providing other, POS-based or payment-based solutions for their subsidiaries. Stefan majored in computer science from Georgia Institute of Technology, and he started at Shinsegae as a web developer. He's now part of the cloud POS team and working with the international business manager to be able to roll out their solutions globally. So Stephen, I'll hand over the discussions over to you. Thank you.
So I would like to thank Yong for introducing me, and also I thank Australia Chamber of Commerce in Korea for having me today. So the topic that I'll be talking about today in this presentation is how to develop payment solutions for an e-commerce marketplace that is taking place in Korea right now. And as an international business manager, I have studied a lot of e-commerces that had success outside Korea. And we are trying to follow their trends, their footsteps, to find out a way to successfully implement what they implemented abroad here in the Korean market. So this presentation will be more of a survey from marketing perspective. So it'll be a little less technical, but I'll try to make it insightful for all of you. Okay. Excuse me. So, overview of e-commerce trends in Korea as of today. So let me just briefly go over them. So about 80% of Koreans have at least one credit card. So this means that by law, it is illegal to refuse service or refuse credit card if the store is an affiliate of credit card company. And there are a lot of vendors and small merchants, even small merchants now, they accept credit cards as payment. So it is very common to see people using credit cards more than they use cash. And 93% of Koreans have smartphones and use smartphones on a daily basis. So it is not surprising to see, it's not surprising for a birthplace of Samsung and LG that this many people are using smartphones that are connected to the internet. And online shopping back in 2016 was worth 58.5 billion US dollars. And more than half of online shoppers bought their stuff on mobile devices, using mobile devices, and spent a little more than half the amount, which is 31.7 billion USD for online shopping. So it is projected that e-commerce here is growing and growing at a rate of 15% annually. So the number doesn't seem to decline over time. So we can expect e-commerce to expand over the next years to come. So let me just briefly introduce 3 popular payments in Korea and how people pay. So like I said, the first option is by credit card. So it's a physical plastic card that you have. And if you want to make a purchase online, say at an online store, then you would have to input your credit card information and credentials to make the transaction. And some of the leading providers would be Samsung, Hyundai, and Lotte. And not to mention, there are multinational conglomerates as well. And the next one would be app card, which is literally electronic credit card that is registered on your mobile device. So after you register your card on your mobile device, then it generates a QR code or like a barcode or even virtual card number, but it depends on what kind of app you're using. But it generates such code for one time that you can securely make a payment with your app card. So some leading providers would be mostly financial institutions. So say Shinhan Bank, Korean Bank, or Hana Bank, just to point out some of the biggest banks we have here. And lastly, mobile payment isn't that different from app card. We also call it simple payment in Korea. And it's literally a credit card that is registered on your mobile app. And before each time you pay, you would have to put in your passcode or provide biometrics to make transaction. And some of the leading providers for that would be Naver Pay, Samsung Pay, Kakao Pay, and Payco in the order of market size. And then next, I'll be talking about some notable, some big e-commerce platforms we have, and they fall into three big categories. And the first category is an online store. The leader in this industry would be Naver. And they actually started as a search engine back in 1999 in Korea. They were Korea's first web portal. And now they have been actively expanding their businesses in many sectors, including online shopping and payment as well. And here you can see on the right side is the result of their, the brainchild of their smart store, their online store, which is called Smart Store, where you can do both online shopping and payment at the same time. So from the seller's perspective, for people who run these smart stores on Naver platform, they can, not only they can just display what they sell, but also at the same time, they are given a wide, a variety of analytical tools, like from advertisement and marketing, tools for sales analytics and inventory management and such, to really stay competitive, to stay in the lead in the competition, in the e-commerce competition. So the bottom line is, since this solution is quite affordable for small and medium-sized businesses, there are a lot of individual sellers who are using this platform to really sell their products. And these are, so these sellers are the ones who don't run offline stores. So for them, it is financially, it doesn't take a big toll on their bank. It doesn't break their wallet to run one of these stores to generate their revenue. And the second type is what I would call a very uniquely Korean way to approach e-commerce. And the example here is gift exchange by KakaoTalk. So KakaoTalk started as a mobile messenger back in 2010, so it's been 10 years. But they also have been expanding their businesses, and now they have what's called gift shop. So this gift shop is actually part of KakaoTalk. So it's not a separate application, but it's part of the service of their original service. So what you do is you can go online, you can access their gift shop, and then get stuff that you want to send to your friends, maybe in your contact. So their sale, so you can find a variety of items from something you can eat to something you can put on at affordable prices. So you can purchase one of those goods and then send them as a gift to your acquaintances. And it's been gaining popularity among Koreans, especially the younger generation, or even my parents' generation, who are using KakaoTalk on a daily basis. So also, this is a very good example of what I call O2O service, online to offline service. So you make payment online first on your mobile device, more specifically on your KakaoTalk, and then you can send it to someone else, and then he or she can have the gift delivered to his front door, or he can actually go to a physical store to pick it up himself. So there is a link between online and offline, and I believe this type of platform is actually blurring the line between online and offline. So I found it very interesting. The last type of e-commerce platform would be a conventional online mall. So you can think of Amazon, for example, in the United States. So here, what I want to introduce here is ssg.com by Shinsegae Group, which is our parent company. And they launched this service about 7 years ago to make a site, make a shopping mall online where people can shop all their brands, because it used to be all separate malls for each brand that the Shinsegae Group once owned, like E-Mart, which is the biggest supercenter in Korea, or Shinsegae Department Store, which is one of the top 3 department store brands in Korea. So now in the image, you can see the colored tabs on top, at the top. They're all brands. They're all individual brands that used to be all separate, like all separate, all spread out on the internet. So if you want to shop at multiple sites, you would have to visit their own individual sites. But now all the hassles are gone, because thanks to ssg.com, they integrated all these websites into one, so that you can find whatever you need on this platform. So also being a member of this online mall gives you some perks, like same day or late night delivery. So if you buy something on this website, then you can expect to have your order at your front door on the same day or within a few hours overnight. So that was the last type of e-commerce platforms we have in Korea. So from what we have seen from and all these types of e-commerce, it all boils down to 3 things that we have to keep in mind to build a perfect payment solution from marketing's perspective. So the first is we have to keep in mind there's a growing demand for processing and accepting many types of payments. So not just simple credit card payment, but also mobile payments and app card payments, both international and domestic. And I'll talk about that later in the last slide. And there's also a need for additional features, meaning a variety of tools like analytical tools, like I mentioned before, to expand your e-commerce business and also to stay competitive in this market. So running an online store nowadays takes more than just displaying your products and then processing payments. It takes more than that. You need to analyze your customers, their behavior from their clicks, or if they type in, or cookies collected from their organic search and things like that. So you'll have to put all those puzzles together to get a better picture of what your customers are really doing and what your customers are expecting from your business. And I believe that's crucial to building a better relationship with your customer and to stay in the competition. And the last thing would be understanding the importance of retaining both online and offline customers. Because if you have multiple channels, like if you are running an omni-channel business, like you have both online shopping malls and you also have offline, like physical stores, then somehow you will have to connect these two, online and offline, to really retain your customers and keep the cash flow going. So this is where an O2O service comes into play. So like I mentioned, KakaoTalk started as a messenger app, but now they're running an online gift shop to really connect those customers both online and offline nowadays. So there's one solution, it's a retail solution that my team has been developing for years that really fits into this frame, and that is called Cloud Point of Sale System, which I call a complete retail solution. So it's beyond, well, it's built upon payment platform, but it is much more than that in a sense that it has a multiple number of touch points from online store to vending machines and kiosks. So what I mean by that is that you have this cloud point of sale system, which is central system that manages and that takes care of all payment touch points, all possible, all available touch points you can expect, both online and offline, because you generate income as a merchant, both online and offline in most cases, and you want to streamline all those payments, and you want to be able to have all that information on a single dashboard. So again, you can get a better picture of how your business is doing, and you want to analyze the performance, the health of your business. So that's why cloud point of sale system comes into play to really incorporate, glue all them together into one solution. So it can process orders from online and offline, and then it also supports delivery order, where people want to have their products shipped or delivered to their home. And also there is something called smart order, which I will that I'll explain in depth later in the next slide. And also there's a wide range of payments that cloud point of sale system is compatible with. So not only you can pay with cash, in a physical store, you can pay with mobile payments and coupons, gift cards, and QR codes, and much more. So that's why I call this a complete retail solution. And lastly, for vendors or sellers, it comes with a bundle of back office functionalities. So like I said, running an e-commerce platform or online store is much more job than just simply processing payment nowadays. So you have to gain insights into your business and also your customers as well. So that's why cloud point of sale systems is capable of generating sales reports and managing your staff and your team, and also running membership, offering membership to your VIPs or your patrons to keep them loyal to your brands and such. So let me just briefly cover two iconic e-commerce services that cloud point of sale system can offer. And the first one was Smart Pay that I was going to explain in depth. So Smart Pay is an integrated payment platform that accepts a wide spectrum of payment options that I mentioned, from cash to mobile payments. So it becomes easier for people for sellers and vendors to add additional payment options than on-premises systems, than when they're dealing with payment on-premises systems. Because for cloud point of sale system, which is internet-based, you can simply develop, integrate, and deploy your solution at any time, anywhere, as long as you're connected to the internet. So that'll be one advantage that comes with implementing cloud point of sale system or cloud service to your business. And the next thing would be Smart Order, which is a online to offline feature for processing online payments and in-store pickups. So like I said about KakaoTalk's gift shop, online gift shop, you purchase online, you prepay online, and then you go into store, pick it up whatever you bought, and that's it. So that's a way to keep both online and offline stores alive, especially in the times of COVID, where there are a lot of restrictions, a lot of strains, both financially and politically, in some sense. I wouldn't go deeper than that, but on physical stores nowadays. So if you are a vendor that is trying to keep both online and offline stores going, then this might be a good choice for you to implement. So that was it for Smart Order. So there are three things that I would like to conclude this presentation with, and that is the the fact that the line between online and offline is going thinner and thinner, and it'll get much thinner than it is now. So we have to keep an O2O service in mind for your business. And there will be more e-commerce platforms available for small and medium-sized businesses and individual sellers. And not to mention that Canada's Shopify, in case you guys don't know what Shopify is an e-commerce platform that is highly customizable for people who want to sell their products. So that service first launched last summer, I believe, in Korea. So we can tell there are many companies, many players that are coming to Korean market to really compete with domestic e-commerce platforms that existed years ago. And finally, but not least important, is that a big number of cross-border shoppers, especially from China and mainly from Japan, are expected once COVID restrictions are lifted, and there always has been a big number of tourists who buy stuff while they're in Korea. So this means that we will have to be able to accept not only just domestic payments, but also international payments. So we have to keep international payments in mind. So that's why cloud point of sale system, for example, is now compatible with Alipay and WeChat Pay, for example, from China, so that we can accept as many payments as possible to generate the, to keep the customers coming and keep the cash flow going as well. So that's it for my presentation, and I hope that was quite insightful for many of you, and thank you for the privilege of your time.
Thank you, Stephen. It's great to understand, how the online and the offline industry is evolving, and how now both segments of the industry is coming together to become a single usage experience for the users. So thank you again to both Sally and Stephen, and I'll pass on the next items over to Rowan.
Thank you very much. Yeah, once again, thank you very much to Stephen and Sally for your insights. We'll start the Q&A session right now, and I've got a couple of questions from those attending today, but also some pre-submitted questions. So a question for Sally and Stephen. Do you plan to expand your business overseas?
I can probably take that question first. I think for TOS, what we're trying to do as a whole company is to make sure that we have a strong stance in Korean market first, because as I mentioned, it's something with a lot of complexity and sophistication. So we're going to focus on that first. However, we're more than happy to assist our global merchants coming into Korea, and also maybe some of the local merchants who are trying to explore opportunities outside of Korea as well. So that's kind of rolling at the moment, in progress, I would say.
Stephen, oh, you're on mute there, sorry. Stephen, on mute.
So for Shinsegae, I see we're also expanding our business in the Middle East. We're in the process of it. And it's mainly cloud, it's all cloud point of sale system based hardware, like vending machines and such. And yeah, so that's the first sort of a baby step we're taking to really expand and to make cloud point of sale system available for markets as well. So this is just the beginning of everything.
And the next question we got here, we sort of tie into that similar theme. It says more and more Korean businesses are focusing on target demographics offshore. So what are some of the solutions you can see to help Korean businesses set up services for foreign consumers?
Right, so I can briefly talk about this. There is a trend for sure for cross-border transactions and cross-border businesses, especially in Korea. There are certain industries such as cosmetics, retail, fashion, and K-pop related industries, which are trying to attract offshore consumers who are outside of Korea. At the moment, for payment solutions that we hold in TOS, it's more geared towards the local market for people who are trying to make transactions within Korea. However, spotting this opportunity, we are trying to build a solution by partnering with global payment service providers or global payment method companies to make sure that if a merchant of ours in Korea, if they're trying to reach out to other markets and expand to other countries, we are more than happy to provide payment methods that are relevant to that country. So this is something also in progress as well, because like I mentioned, our main focus is always about having the market leading position in Korea for Korean consumers. However, seeing the demand increasing for cross-border transactions and businesses, we are kind of preparing to hold that kind of solution for our local merchants as well.
Thank you, Sally. Next question here is for Stephen. What solutions are available and how should business adapt for in-store payments?
Okay, so let me just point out that it is very important to be able to process transactions and that come in many forms like cash, credit cards, debit cards, mobile payments, QR codes, and there's a long list of available payments that people can use. So it is important to have some sort of solution that takes or accepts and process all those types of payments without any problem, of course. So I think that's what's really important to be able to be successful in Korea.
Yeah, thank you. Another question here, and slightly different, and feel free to chime in if you do have an answer. But any thoughts on the future of blockchain technology in Korea? Anyone? Yongin?
So I'll take that question. So blockchain services in other markets. So from Fiserv's point of view, in 16 countries, we support blockchain as a payment form. The only reason why it's quite slow in Korea is because it's unregulated. So, PSPs like, Shinsegae, TOS, and even Fiserv ourselves, we now are categorized as of last year as an organization that need to comply with the anti-money laundering laws. And so blockchain itself as an industry does not have any legal governing, properties. So I do know that, it is something a few companies are pushing at the moment with the local regulators, and the regulators are currently reviewing that at this time.
Thanks, Yong. Another question for all our speakers. In Australia and North America, there is an emergence of buy now, pay later sector, which is gaining critical market value and user signups. What are your views, if any, on this type of payment service in the Korean market?
I'll take that again. So pay later is a solution that's recently been introduced in other markets like the US, Australia, APAC, and it's very popular. However, it's a service that's been around in South Korea for over a decade. We call it installment payments. And specifically, it's broken down in 3 different segments. Automatically, we allow Korean cardholders to be able to have first 3 months as interest-free, and they have the choice up to 12 months to pay in installments, or specific to certain merchants or category of the businesses being operated, the credit card companies does allow extended period, which goes up to from 24 up to 36 months. Specifically, also, there are other PSPs in the market that provide a different model, which is whereby they keep the funds as escrow to be able to send the transactions or, authorize a transaction, after X amount of months. That answers some of the question.
Thank you very much, Yong. Next question here is for Sally. How is the security associated with TOS payments or businesses? And is the customer data being shared with any other businesses?
Right. So in the payment scene, security plays a very, very crucial role because payment method providers are dealing with sensitive information for sure, whether it's about credit card information, personal information. Therefore, TOS payments, just like any other payment gateways in Korea, has implemented multiple measures and layers to make sure that users' information is not being shared externally or being hijacked. For example, actually, TOS payment is called as a certified payment gateway in Korea, where we can have tokenized and shared tokenized and card information stored within our payment gateway. So those kind of things are all done by examination and multiple tests and licensing processes done by financial institutions and government organizations in Korea. So these kind of data allowance and data rights are all done by a lot of regulations within Korea and a lot of institutions as well. So this is something that not just TOS payments, but all the payment gateway services are really taken care of in Korea. So that will be the definition of security in my speech, I think.
Excellent. Thank you very much. To all our panelists, there's a question here on COVID. So what are the challenges which are unique to the COVID sort of pandemic are your organizations experiencing, and have you had any key learnings or insights because of it?
Can I share my insights on that? Since our group, Shinsegae, owns a variety, a lot of offline stores, from department stores, super centers, convenience stores, and duty-free shops. So we are affected, that is for sure, that is apparent that we are affected because of the COVID pandemic. But it's not that we're losing customers domestically, since people have been sort of suppressing so most people want to go outside and just hang out with people and then do normal shopping they did before the pandemic broke out. So there's still people visiting stores, although despite the government restrictions, but we expect more people to come and shop at our physical stores after the restrictions are lifted.
Thank you, Stephen. A question here. As a foreigner, it seems to me that Korea's payment market is highly fragmented with many different payment brands. How do you think the industry will shift towards further fragmentation or consolidation?
I can probably quickly add a comment on that. I guess the wisest answer is no one knows, usually, for these type of questions. But just judging from what I'm experiencing within the market is that it's going to take a lot of time, or it's going to take a lot of effort for the whole market to be consolidated, because there's so many players, and the pie itself, the market itself is so huge. So as I show you from my slide, TOS payments only for payment gateway services, we are already processing over $2 billion per month. If you're thinking about at least 4 or 5 players doing similar size or even smaller size, that's going to be a very, very big market. And if one player is there, that's actually more worrisome than having a lot of players. So I wouldn't say the consolidation will happen sometime soon. However, I would say there could be some vertical integration. For example, maybe different size of payment gateways would eat each other up, or getting merged and acquisition, or it could be different payment gateway services or payment providers vertically integrated with other types of local payment methods or alternative payment methods. That could happen in the market as well. But all in all, just from my perspective, the consolidation part would be something much, much more in a longer term, and something that would not probably happen within Korean market in a very short term.
Fantastic. Yong.
So if I may just echo from Sally's comment, and what Sally's saying, it's definitely true. We've got so many players, but thing is, to be able to, what the credit card companies currently look at is always trying to give the best, type of rates or services for their customers, which are the merchants. So hence, having a monopoly doesn't make sense, and they try to avoid that. So a lot of the PSPs or switching companies in Korea have specific, I guess, strengths. So some companies focus on, QSRs, which is quick service restaurants, others more on the e-commerce, and the others focusing on airlines and travel. So I think, I totally agree with Sally that it may take some time, but I don't see anything like that happening anytime soon.
Thanks, Yong and Sally, for your answer. I got a question here for Sally. Will Korea move towards interoperability or setting up a common standard for QR-based payment methods?
Right. So I would say as Korea market itself, the QR payment is something that Koreans are not used to. For example, in China, through Alipay and WeChat Pay, QR payment has become something of a norm in both online and offline transactions. However, in Korea, like I showed in my presentation, since credit card payments are so easy and it's so universal anywhere you go in Korea, either online or offline, I don't think there was a big need for QR payments so far. However, I do see the consumer perspective on QR codes are changing because during COVID, people are checking in through their QR codes. There are QR codes everywhere. You have to put in your information. So this trend might be able to change how people think about QR codes. So after COVID and after people using more and more QR code access points, I do think there could be a change, which I'm not sure how it's going to be like, whether it's going to start from offline or online, but the perspective on QR code would be the first challenge to overcome if there are to be QR payments to be quite of a norm in Korean market, I would say.
Thanks, Sally. And this may be a good segue moving to our last question as we are running out of time. According to industry players, there is a rumor that Alipay will enter the South Korean market this year and aiming to absorb a Korean user base. Any thoughts on this rumor?
I can quickly comment on it, whether I don't think it's about whether it's a rumor or not. I think it's just about, as Alipay, its model itself, what kind of challenges they will have when they come into Korea market. The first one would be getting the customer segment, because the reason why people use Kakao Pay is not because Kakao Pay is one unique solution. It's because Kakao Pay already has the customer base. So if Alipay is entering, that's the base that they have to build up from the very scratch, probably, because not many people use Ali products in Korea. And second, probably would be about the QR code, which I mentioned, because that's the basis of Alipay as well. So these two challenges. However, if they're aiming to let Chinese customers or Chinese tourists having more access to Alipay payment points in Korea, offline and online, that could be an interesting angle too, I think, from my perspective.
Fantastic. Well, with that, I think we might wrap up today's session. I would like to once again thank very much to Sally Lee from TOS Payments, Stephen Cha from Shinsegae INC, and also Yong and Cho from Fiserv. We do have a poll there, so I do welcome everyone to fill that in. And thank you once again to everyone for tuning into our inaugural Financial Services Subcommittee event for the year. And I do look forward to touching base with everyone. If you do have any questions for either the AustCham Korea team or for our special panelist here, please be sure to email us at info@austchamkorea.org. Once again, thank you very much to our panelists, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everyone.